Hello, I'm Karma Kitaj. You're watching A Livelihood, New Adventures as We Age. And today I'm going to introduce you to Joan Ditzion. Joan is a friend who is one of the original founders and co-authors of Our Bodies, Ourselves. So welcome.
Delighted to be here.
Joan, you and I have known each other for a number of years through a wonderful, vibrant group called Life Planning Network that provides education and advocacy for people over age 50. So we've worked together there some. Yeah.
Great organization.
Yep. So, of course, I've known that you were one of the original founders and authors of Our Bodies, Ourselves. And that you just had a wonderful 40th anniversary. So why don't you say something about what that was like for you?
Yeah, no, that has been phenomenal. I'd say it's sort of been a milestone event. It's both the 40th anniversary and the launching of the 9th edition of Our Bodies, Ourselves. And so it's a really milestone event that, for me personally, really affected my sense of self as an aging woman, feeling very much more embracing sort of an elder role in society, transitioning into
sage
it.
Elder,
Sage elder. And feeling very much wanting to find ways to pass on this legacy and to age well and to really maintain the vitality of feminist values.
And so say a little bit more about what this wonderful event was like for you, because I know women came from all over the world. And it sounds like that was just an incredible experience for you.
Yeah, it really was phenomenal. I mean, I guess the founders had decided to celebrate our 40th, maybe we could bring these women who adapted the book in other countries from around the world. And so we had a free symposium hosted at BU on October 1st, and we brought over women from Tanzania, from Israel-Palestine, from Armenia, from India, from Nepal, there's a woman who has been working with a group of Tibetan nuns exiled in India, from Turkey, from Bulgaria, from Japan, from Senegal. It was phenomenal. And to meet these women, very courageous women who have been working on these projects, and to be able to, I had sitting around talking with them, it's like I sort of knew about this, but to sit around and talk and have conversations, I just had a visceral sense of that the stirrings that we felt 40 years ago are now happening throughout the world. And the book, as it travels, has really had a ripple effect. It's amazingly inspiring to meet these women. And I felt renewed about the need for human rights, throughout the world. It made me feel that really, to meet these women, very hopeful. About the possible empowerment of women, and also I had fantasies. A lovely woman from Tanzania stayed with me, and she's doing a book in Swahili, and that book could circulate through all of East Africa. And the Israeli-Palestinian women are working on this book, and in Hebrew and Arabic, and again, if the Arabic book could circulate. And it's like basic information that women need to know, and there's no health care in many of these places in rural areas. So it's both compelling, but also, really stirred up my sense of, social human justice. And it's important issues. I mean, the book more is for women of all ages, but it's so important to have everything in the whole lifespan, intergenerational context. And again, ageism is a problem in our society, and we're learning new ways of thinking about aging, and certainly been involved in efforts for this. But still, in our culture, sometimes, which sexism affects women, and racism people of color, and ageism anyone who happens to grow old.
Well, I'm curious, do you think, though, that ageism is directed more towards women than men?
In some ways, I think. I think it's harder. I think women experience ageism at an earlier age than men do. I really do, yeah.
So you say, Joan, that you grew up with the book. As an adult, certainly.
Yes.
You did. So
Yes.
you
Should I
started-
say also a little bit about the project? Do you think, how that came about?
Yeah.
And just to put the context so that my growing up, to put my growing up with the book in that context, because it's interesting. It takes us back to the 60s, really, and it was the time of the civil rights movement and the anti-war movement and New Left on campuses, and the women's movement was beginning. Mm-hmm. And so this project began as a sort of a task consciousness-raising group. And it started at a workshop at Emmanuel College in a women's liberation conference. And it was women in their bodies, and people attending. I joined a little later. People attending realized that we didn't know much about our bodies at all. And that was men were the experts on women's bodies, and doctors know best. And, we don't have to have much information. And it was realizing that was quite appalling. Yeah. So the idea was to have a course and a consciousness-raising group where women could talk about these things.
I can remember, this reminds me, Joan, that I was in a couple of different consciousness-raising groups back then, and whenever it was, the 60s or 70s. And there was one in which we started to talk about our bodies, and the whole group decided to bring in this male gynecologist to talk to us about our bodies. But I did raise an objection about having a man come in and tell us about our bodies. But that was, the mentality, even in a consciousness raising.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that amazing, huh?
It takes us back. We have come a long way when you think about how things were. So anyhow, in those days, gathering together, it was like, oh, my God, as we learned in the course, I remember the energy in that room. And as we began to learn more, the knowledge, we just felt so empowered about, sort of having more sense of control about our lives, our bodies, ourselves, and our lives. We started to write a pamphlet to circulate so that the process of the conversation could spread. And, since then, there have been 9 editions, and it's in 25 different languages. And the organization morphed from a collective of decision-making to an organization with a small staff, and then became more traditional into a staff, a board, advisory board, and the founders group remains intact.
So what does the organization do now?
Now, works on books, works on policy advocate, supports all the global projects that are going on throughout the world. And, just a lot of advocacy stuff. There's a great website, ourbodiesourselves.org, and there's a great blog and a great, tons of information on the website.
Well, this has been a wonderful story to hear, and we're at the end of our time already. So I appreciate your coming.
Yeah.